Welcome back to Halliday's Kitchens, everyone. Today we'll be making Pico De Gallo, and what we'll need is all the items that you see here. Let's start by chopping up our tomatoes. The way I like to do it is to go ahead and cut the ends off of each one and then cut it in half from the top down and then get all those ready. Once the tomatoes are halved and cut, then we're ready to go ahead and get out the seeds and the flesh. Now I'm using a tomato knife that is serrated here, so as you see there, putting my hand in there, it's not so bad to get cut, but you want to be very careful if you are using a very sharp a knife doing that. You wouldn't want to go through the tomato and, get your hand. Now the tomatoes are ready to be chopped up, and what I think is important here for Pico De Gallo is to make all the pieces as uniform as possible. So as you see, I'm taking my time and going through and cutting them all to be about the same size. This is where a lot of the work comes in, but it's well worth it. But just take some time, slice the tomatoes down, and then cut across there, try to make them all the same size. Putting those tomatoes in a medium-sized bowl, then we're ready to go ahead and start chopping our onions. Cutting the onion to the thickness that you want. Usually you just need a couple of slices there depending upon how much Pico De Gallo you are making. And I have to admit, I cheat. I use a chopper that makes sure that they're all uniform size, the same, and I really like the size and consistency of that. So I go ahead and cheat and use that. It's well worth keeping it consistent, and it's a lot of time saver. For the jalapenos, I usually go ahead and take most of the all the seeds out, and a good part of the white pithy part, that's where a lot of the heat is. That way we'll just get the flavor and we'll get some heat from the jalapeno. Chopping up the jalapeno, I like to do it in very small pieces so that way it gets distributed all throughout the Pico De Gallo and you don't end up with just a few big chunks of jalapeno. So I slice it quite thin and then try to make tiny little squares. So I say that way it'll be all throughout the Pico De Gallo and you get that nice flavor hopefully with each bite. For my new ingredient, these little Thai peppers that I found at my little Asian market that they have down the street here from me, and I just chop those up into very small little pieces, once again trying to get those distributed. I'm keeping the seeds in there because I really want that wonderful heat and flavor of these Thai peppers. Nothing else really tastes like them I've ever found, so I'm just going to try to get those incorporated throughout the Pico De Gallo, and this is why at the end it's a good idea to let it sit in the refrigerator for a while to get that flavor to go all the way through. Get that lime in there and juice it on up. Using a juicer is easiest, otherwise you can just use your hands and squeeze it in, but I say a lime juicer works very easily and gets most of the lime juice out of the lime. Sprinkling with a little bit of salt to taste, and then go ahead and mix that around, and then at the end that's when I put my cilantro in. I don't like to put my cilantro in before this because I feel with the lime juice it can get wet, so you do it afterwards. And of course the cilantro, I am not a fan of cilantro seeds or stems at all, so I go ahead and take the time. It takes a while, but I go ahead and remove all the cilantro leaves off the stem, so that way all I have is the leaves in my Pico De Gallo. I think it makes for a much better Pico De Gallo. I give the cilantro leaves a quick chop just to break them up and get their flavors out, and then go ahead and join it in with the rest of the ingredients for the Pico De Gallo and stir that around. At this point, you're going to want to taste it and see if you need some more salt. I like to salt in layers a little bit at a time to make sure you don't do too much at one time, so that at the end you'll get it just with the right amount of salt that you'd like. And now for the fun part, get to taste it. Just some tortilla chips and some Pico De Gallo. It's a meal. It's fantastic. It's fresh. It's simple. And it's absolutely one of my favorite things to snack on. You can download this recipe from hallidayskitchen.com. We'll put a link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.